Have yourself some water, you got some donuts, muffins. All there. My name's Aaron. How are you? Oh, staying busy. That's a good thing. My grandfather is working on the road. Yes, sir. That's what they say. Yes, sir. So do you have some property on the outside that you bring divorce? Maybe. I don't know, I ain't met them, but I'm right down the road. Somebody's asking about who's got these horses. Ain't found. I'm not sure. Somebody retired. That's not reasonable. We're not where he is. Thanks, officer. No, I can tell you. Yeah, I didn't mix it for you. Okay. I'm going to right. Every 2 minutes to rock it down. Nice.
That should list like. Put over there. I was gonna say if you want to, you can just right here. Okay. You can see it. Oh, okay. If you don't mind it being up there. Yeah, I mean that probably give you a bit better sound.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I still get y'all.
On the other side of the road.
And so it has early countries.
I'm fine. Like we close right now.
And we currently
I'm Kevin Wilson. Yeah. I spoke to you, but I didn't hear you. I'm good. I spent a little time with her today.
Okay, yeah, never did tell me.
Good to see you. Well, it's not amazing. They felt that much.
Oh, you know, that's a good idea. You'll get it.
I never looked at the house. I don't know mail for it. And you live right there on the thing.
You want my question?
Just one. Only one.
You can save your card.
Yeah, I got a lot of questions.
Card for the question. He's on. And I wasn't paying attention. And I graduated. Okay. Sam? Yes. Oh, that's it's Sam Claire.
I don't think Jason make back time with the speaker.
Sorry.
It don't look like it's on, so.
Was it a that? Right.
That's all I got. Here's this.
Okay, okay.
I guarantee you all know something that you don't know.
Right.
If you count it.
I was counting one. We didn't discuss the rules, but I don't think so.
That's very helpful.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
You never lived near my friend house. Yes. Yeah. In fact, the third but anyway, so, yes. No.
Oh, he lives here.
Right. Yeah.
What did I said?
We'll give you
And you know, the last 2 years, we had a lot of, you know what, that hurt me, because I knew he was getting old. You know, older.
That includes,
People that are 92 or
All right, appreciate it. Good to see you. And how are you? Do what? Okay. I just need your debt. For the actual business, you say? I don't have one in my car anymore. Can you turn the speakers on, the house speakers on, and we use this? And I can hold it close.
We have where's our camera? And they actually came. The backyard is the lowest for me. So you should hit his power button on and you can get it up.
One way. All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Yes, sir. Okay.
This is like churches. I can sit on the front row.
No, sir. If you're brave enough. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you all so much for being here tonight. We're grateful to have your presence here. For those of you that we've not had the opportunity to meet, my name is Eric Evans, and I have the honor of serving as the Edgecombe County Manager. We're going to give you just a few housekeeping things in just a moment, but I do want to recognize we're fortunate to have two of our commissioners here tonight. Mr. George Thorne is here, as well as Mr. Leonard Wiggins, who's our chairman. Thank them for being here. And we're also grateful for those in the press who are here tonight. John, thank you for being here. Mr. Dancy and Brianna, thank you all here for being here. We know that tonight we found out happens to be a busy night and there are other things going on. So there are probably some folks that wanted to be here that couldn't. And so we're not able to show it ourselves, video and show it live feed. So thank y'all for being here to show it. We will record this and then post it on the county's YouTube page, hopefully by tomorrow. So anyone who's not able to be here could watch if they like. Before I introduce the team that you'll hear more from tonight, let me point out, hopefully you got an index card on your way in. What we'd like to do is, as we go through our presentation, as we share tonight from the team, if you have questions or concerns, would you please write those on those cards, okay? If there's one or more than one, you're welcome. If you need another card, just let us know. Just so that we can have an opportunity as best as we can to answer your questions if we're able to. We can capture those questions in case we need to have some follow-up, but we can also gain some feedback from your responses tonight. I'm going to talk about the purpose, but let me introduce the team, or let them introduce themselves, and they're going to come back and going to hear a little bit more from them in just a minute. First, Mike.
I'm Mike Matthews. I'm the Assistant County Manager for Edgecombe County.
Great. Thanks, Mike. Durbin.
I'm Durbin Phil, Director of Planning Inspections and E911 for Edgecombe County.
Thank you, Durbin. Bob.
And I'm Bob White, President and CEO of Carolina Skyway Partnership.
Great. Thank you. So let me talk about the purpose for tonight. I know we, shared it in the flyer, and obviously you saw that or you heard about it, but we wanted the opportunity. We know that there's been a lot of conversation about potential data center projects here in the county. There have been some concerns and questions. We hear about those. We see those on social media. We wanted to have the opportunity for your staff, us, to have a conversation with you, our citizens that we serve. We want to be able to have this conversation, number one, to share what we know and to tell you where we are and to share information with you as we know it at this time. We also want to have the opportunity to get feedback from you, because whether it's regarding a data center or anything else that we do as the county, we need to hear from you as best as we can, because we serve you. And we want to make sure that us as staff and the board, that we are as informed as we possibly can be in making decisions that we make on behalf of you. And so tonight we want this to be an exchange. We want to exchange information with you that we have. We're going to talk about sort of economic development from a broader perspective first, and then we're going to come and talk about this data centers and the data center project in particular that's looking at the county. And then we're going to give you a chance to share questions and concerns. And at the end, we're going to go through those and try to answer those as best as we can. I do want to go ahead and say up front, tonight, what we will share with you about the data center project in particular that's looking at Kingsboro, we won't be discussing the one for Tarboro. That goes through Tarborough's jurisdiction, though same company, very similar setup. I can't really speak on the process for the town of Tarboro or anything specific about that project. But certainly a lot of what we discuss about data centers tonight will probably apply to that as well. So you have a copy of the agenda, and this is just to keep us all focused so that we can have a productive exchange tonight. As you see, certainly these timelines are guides for us. We don't have to particularly stick to those, and if we need to stay longer, we can, or if we're done early, we certainly, all of us, I'm sure, like to get home as soon as we can. We will have a break, as I mentioned, give you a chance if you want to use the restrooms. And by the way, if you haven't been in this building before, the restrooms are straight down the hall to your left. So first, before we get to talking about data centers, I want to talk about economic development in a more general sense, because all of this falls under the county's efforts related to economic development. Economic development is a term that's thrown around a lot. It is something that every county and just about every municipality is working on in some way. And generally, the goal is to attempt to create jobs within the county for us and to grow our tax base. It's pretty much boils down to that. We need more jobs, and we need for our tax base to grow. And so in pursuing economic development, job creation, and the growth of our tax base, we approach that in different ways. And different counties pursue it in different ways. Different towns pursue it in different ways. But we all in some way are out here trying to bring in jobs and to increase the tax base for our county. And we particularly, it's especially important for Edgecombe County, because as I'm sure that you know, that unfortunately we have a relatively high unemployment rate in this state. In fact, last I checked, we had the highest unemployment rate in the state. So many of your neighbors, your family members, your friends, people that you know from church, civic groups, there are a lot of people in Edgecombe County that are seeking jobs but cannot find them. And there could be many different reasons why they're not finding them. Part of it, we believe, is that we need not just more jobs, but we need more better paying or good paying jobs. The other reason why this is especially important for Edgecombe County is because all of you who pay taxes, pay property taxes here, whether you pay that directly as a property owner or you pay it indirectly if you're a renter and you're paying rent. And so one of the best ways for us to help to alleviate some of that burden for all of us, and that includes me. I live here in Edgecombe County. I live in Tarboro. One of the best ways that we can do that is to grow our tax base. And as much as we can bring in a company, an industry, a manufacturing facility that makes a large investment, pays taxes based on those investments, that helps all of us in alleviating some of that tax burden. So that's the overall goal. That's what we're pursuing. Now, here in Edgecombe County, the approach that our county has taken has been through industrial recruitment primarily, and pursuing that through here at Kingsboro Industrial Park. We call it Kingsboro Business Park now. The Board of Commissioners, in their wisdom over 20 years ago, decided that we wanted to have an industrial park here in Edgecombe County, not unlike many other counties that have industrial parks or business parks. And so the board at that time started to option land and over the years to purchase land, to the point that now we have around 2,000 acres right here in Kingsboro that's owned by the county. And so that has been our primary tool that we have used to try to pursue economic development. And of course, there's small business development. There are smaller companies that have grown. There are existing companies who grow and expand. But one of our primary avenues has been through using Kingsboro Business Park to pursue job creation and new investment. You're going to get to hear a little bit more about the park in just a minute, and hear from some of the team on some of the things that we have been doing here at the park. You're also going to hear in just a few minutes about how special this park is, this business park. It is quite unlike any other park here in the state of North Carolina. So again, all of this is related to us trying to create new jobs and to grow our tax base. And so now I'm going to invite Mike Matthews, our assistant county manager, to come up, and he's going to talk a little bit about what that process is like. Not necessarily specific to this data center project, but what the economic development process is typically like. Mike?
So I'm assuming I have to stand behind the pulpit.
Yes, you do.
Okay.
Preach on, bro.
Preach on. Y'all don't want to get me to talk. Y'all done gave me 2 microphones, and that ain't good. So I was kind of hoping you had notes for me, but you don't. So I'm just going to ad-lib this thing. So Edgecombe County, unlike some other counties, some counties have their own economic development department. Some don't. Some cities do, some don't. Some towns do, some don't. Edgecombe County has joined with the town of Tarver, City of Rocky Mount, and we all use Carolina's Gateway Partnership, which Mr. Bob Pike was just introduced just earlier. We use them as our economic development team. Now, with that being said, I'm part of the team. Mr. Evans is part of the team. There's several other. Durbin is part of the team when we get to looking at economic development. So I was sitting here thinking, what would be the easiest way because to be honest with you, when I'm sitting in some of these meetings with some of these companies, I get lost sometimes myself. And I probably shouldn't admit that, but sometimes they throw some stuff at me and I'm like, oh, what is this? And it gives you an opportunity to do a little bit of homework and get to figure out exactly what it is that they're talking about so that you can further put those extra tools in your tool belt so that next time you know exactly what's going on. So the easiest way that I thought that we could do this is when these companies come to us, they come to us with code names. We have no clue what they mean. We have no clue what they are even when they're sitting across from the table from us sometimes, we have no clue what they do. All we know is we've got a RFI, which is a request for information that's been sent to us that says, do you have what we're looking for? Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. And so I thought this would be a pretty easy way to do it. So what I want somebody to do, it don't really matter who it is, just say the most craziest thing that you can possibly say in a word. Just throw a word out that the craziest thing you can think of. It ain't got to be all at once. Anybody? All right, Project Donut has just come to us. And I'm not lying to you. We're working with one right now that's called Project Queen's Carbon. We've had Horizon, we've had Blue Light, Blue Sun. So we're going to go with Project Donut. Project Donut is a company, somebody tell me a state, any state, that's from Texas. And they're looking to expand their business. They've heard that North Carolina is the fastest growing state in the United States, and they want to be part of that growth. All right. So now, what type of company is it? Just anything. Don't matter. Widgets. They make widgets. So Project Donut from Texas is a widget maker. They want to move to North Carolina. So what Project Donut has done is they said that, okay, for this expansion project, we need at least 400 acres, and that's what we need. So that's number one on their list. So this map here behind me shows all of our Kingsboro business park. And what we have done is, even though if you look at our parcel maps, it's not going to exactly line up with these pads, but we have subdivided these out into pads. Some of you may be very familiar with Pad B if you know about Triangle Tire and Natron Energy. Both of those companies were looking at Pad B. Unfortunately, neither one of them are coming, but I can promise you, no faster than they told us they weren't coming. We had 15 phone calls in a day wanting to know about, is Pad B open again? So they're coming. So back to Project Donut that makes widgets from Texas. All right, so now we've got a 400-acre site. It's Pad B. Fortunately for us, Pad B is semi-ready to go. And what makes Kingsboro, and I don't want to steal your thunder, Bob, I know you might say this, but we have the number one mega site probably in the eastern United States. Not just North Carolina, eastern United States. And the reason why is because part of Pad B is already ready. It's been cleared. If you've ever wrote it down and looked at it, it's been cleared. We've got infrastructure there ready to go. All right. So they're looking for Pad B. The first thing they're going to do is they're going to call around. They're going to send that out to different states and say, hey, who's got what we're looking for? Well, that typically for major companies will go to EDPNC, which is the Economic Development of North Carolina. From there, they'll look at major mega sites and stuff throughout North Carolina that would meet the criteria that they're looking for. Almost 99% of the time, Kingsboro Business Park is number one on that list. And so that's how we get a lot of these RFIs. Bob and his team would then in turn send, whether it's EMC, Dominion Power, Piedmont Natural Gas, Brightspeed, Edgecombe Water and Sewer. They'll send an RFI to each one of us and say, hey, can you meet this company's demands? Sometimes their demands are 400 acres. Sometimes they're looking for 200 megawatts of power. Sometimes they're looking for 1 million gallons of water a day, 1 million gallons of wastewater a day. All right. So honestly, if a company comes to me with all of those, we check all those boxes. So what we do is in turn, we send this RFI back to Carolinas Gateway Partnership, who in turn sends it back to EDPNC and says, hey, we got a site that's ready for you. All you got to do is come down here and look at it. They may choose us. They may not. They may decide that this big business plans of doubling their widget capacity is just not going to work out. Sometimes they may say, okay, well, man, you've got all this land. Maybe not only can we do phase 2, maybe we could do phase 3, 4, and 5. And all of a sudden we've got North Carolina widgets, throughout everywhere. All right. So from that point forward, what would happen is they would contact us. They would contact Carolinas Gateway. Look, we'd like to take a site tour. Fantastic. Bob and his team set that up. Most of the time is myself along with Mr. Evans and some, like when I said Edgecombe Martin, Dominion, Piedmont Natural Gas. These are the kind of major players that show up to the table with these companies. We sit down across from them and we talk to them and we say, okay, mind you, the only thing we still know is the name of them is Project Donut and they make widgets. That's about all we know. As we further, what we try to do is we can base a lot of what we think they are on the RFIs that they give us. For instance, if somebody comes with an RFI and says, we only need 200,000 gallons of water a day. All right, we know they're not a bottling facility. We know they're not going to be making any kind of something that has to do with water. Whereas we just had a company maybe a year ago that was looking at us that was looking for 1 million gallons a day. We were pretty sure they were either doing some type of major cooling or they were going to be doing bottling. Come to find out they were doing bottling. So there's little things that you can look at in RFI that as I said, when I first started this, I didn't have a clue what I was looking at. Now, those are little things you start to pick up along the way. Because when I say we get companies, we meet with how many companies a year? A month. 20, 30 a month that we talk to, in some capacity. So after all of that, we sit down, we meet with them. Obviously, most of the time, you've typically got 2 or 3 different sites they're looking at, whether it's in another country, whether it's North Carolina, wherever it is. We're constantly in battles with South Carolina, Georgia, sometimes Texas. But being as this company's coming from Texas, they're looking to move to North Carolina. So, once we finish that process, they leave, they go back and they talk to their investors, say, look, North Carolina, they've got everything we want. So what do we have to do from that point forward? Some companies are ready to roll. Some companies have their finances in place. Some don't. Just to kind of give you a brief breakdown of Natron Energy that they just closed. It's not that they're just not coming. They're no longer a company as of right now. So what kind of spurred that was they were kind of a cutting edge technology, sodium ion battery storage, but they were trying to build their first gigaplant. And they needed some Department of Energy funding. So they were reliant solely in the beginning on Department of Energy. And as you recall, when the administration switched hands, they put a freeze on all federal funding, which included Department of Energy. Well, that kind of took them back for a minute. So they had to say, well, hold on a minute. If that funding is not going to be there, we've got to start figuring out other avenues. As we went through this process, Department of Energy monies just never came about like they were supposed to, for one reason or another. And unfortunately, they ended up where we are. So that's kind of the nutshell as far as Natron Energy goes. And forgive me if I'm rambling on, but I'm trying to kind of piece each part of it together for you. So when we get to that point, we want to make sure they're a good fit for us. So that's something that we go through as well. I think it's probably safe to say, and if it's not, y'all can slap me later, but I've sat across from Ford. I'm talking Ford manufacturing. And sometimes you talk to companies and you're like, man, these are super nice guys. Ford was nice people, but they knew exactly what they wanted. And if you want to fit, they would tell you right then, well, y'all ain't got this, so what you going to do about it? And it just is what it is. And it's no knock on Ford, but they know exactly what they're looking for, and they don't have to rely on what you have. They want you to give what they want. And again, that can be any company. I'm just using Ford as an example. When you've got these other companies that may not have everything as far as financing in place. So then what happens in that process is sometimes we will enter into an inducement agreement with that company. That basically what that says is, okay, if you're looking for incentives, whatever those incentives may be, they may come to us and ask us, okay, we want 50% of the taxes back over 5 years. And we also want you to give us the land. Okay, well, that's fine if that's what you want, but we need you to meet this criteria. Criteria is, just like Mr. Evans said, first and foremost is jobs. Do you meet the jobs? If you come in here saying that you're only going to bring 50 jobs, I don't know that we're going to give you the land and taxes incentives. However, if you're going to bring 500 jobs to the area and a $400 million investment, sure, that's something we can discuss. And at that point in time, it goes to the commissioners to be discussed. And it's their choice as to whether they do or they don't. Let's just say we've got all that taken care of. We're going to enter into this inducement agreement. Once we get into this agreement, all of a sudden we've given them the land. They have a certain time period that they have to meet their criteria. And that's the jobs and that's the investment. If we say, okay, we're going to enter into this and a year from now, we need to see boots on the ground and something happening, and you don't meet it, well, that inducement agreement says that we get our stuff back. or it can be bought back. It depends on how the transaction took place. And again, that is kind of economic development in a nutshell. I know I've probably made it a little deeper than what I should have, but this is the things that I have learned along the way that have helped me to understand economic development better. I hope that using this stuff, and I hope that you understand exactly a little bit more about how economic development works, because I know there's been some questions and some comments going around about, well, the county should be doing A, B, and C. Well, we do. We do a great job of vetting places. We do a great job of vetting companies. I say we do a great job. Some of y'all may not agree with me. I mean, that's fine. Sometimes we have to take trips. I know this past November when Natron had made an announcement, we took a tour of their facilities up in Michigan, Holland, Michigan, and we toured their plant. Basically, what we were trying to get out of that was, what type of facility are you bringing here? And then also on the community college side, how can we prepare our people here for what you guys are going to be bringing here? And I will add a little note to that. Even though Natron is not coming, we talked to their HR department, and I thought this was the neatest thing I'd ever heard. I said, we don't have a lot of people that build batteries in Edgecombe County. In fact, I don't know that we've ever built a battery in Edgecombe County. I said, so what makes Edgecombe County so appealing to you all? And they said, you have a lot of welders. I said, well, I just walked through your plant and I didn't see but one weld in anything. She said, we're not looking for anybody to weld something. She said, what we're looking for is welders, because welders are very precise in what they do. She said, they will measure 3 times and then make their weld. She said, we need that type of mentality in what we're trying to do. Because if somebody is that precise with what they're trying to do, we know that our product is going to be the best when it goes out the door. And Edgecombe County is full of people that know how to do just that. I thought that was phenomenal. I thought that spoke volumes of a company that was taking a chance on Edgecombe County. And the fact that they came down here and done their due diligence, and that's what they found. That should make everybody in this room proud to know that companies that aren't from here come to our county and say, man, this county's got something to offer somebody. So don't let the naysayers say that Edgecombe County don't have it. We got it. I'm a product of Edgecombe County, born in Principal, raised in Leggett. And I've been around here for 45 years. That tells you how old I am. Edgecombe County's got a lot to offer. All we got to do now is keep this economic development train moving. And I promise you, in about 10, 15 years, this place is going to be something that everybody's going to want to be a part of. I promise you. So that's my spiel on economic development.
Thank you, Mike. Thanks, Mike, for that. I want to mention a couple of things. He covered that well. Just want to follow up with a couple of things. One is he talked about the code names that they come to town with. One of the reasons that they do that, or the reason that they do that, is because these are businesses that are manufacturing whatever kind of business that they're in, and they're trying to get a competitive advantage over whoever their competitors are. So a lot of times they don't want the word to get out too fast to their competitors about what they're trying to do. And that's just how business works. Eventually, before we make any kind of decisions, recommendations to the Board of Commissioners, we find out exactly who they are and exactly what they do and what they would produce. The other thing Mike mentioned, you can see that process, there are a lot of components to that process from the time that first phone call comes, whether that goes directly to the State Economic Development Organization or if it comes directly to Carolinas Gateway Partnership. Oftentimes they're trying to move very fast. So all of these things that we've got to do, we have to do them quickly. We have to let them see the site. We have to ask our questions. We have to do our own due diligence. Sometimes that involves us taking a trip, going, try to see either where they are operating somewhere else or something close to what they do. And it's a fast moving process oftentimes. And so we have to work very hard, but we work very well together as a team, from county staff to Carolinas Gateway, Bob and his team, and our other partners like Mike mentioned, the utility providers and others. So there's a lot that has to be done because we want to make sure that when we bring information and we make a recommendation to our Board of Commissioners that they are and we are as well informed as we possibly can be. Again, just to remind you, you have an index card there. If you have questions or comments, please write those down as we go through, and we'll collect those shortly. and address those. I'm going to invite Bob up in just a second, but I want to show you, I want you to appreciate, and I'm sure you already do, but I want you to appreciate even more how unique Kingsboro Business Park is. Mike did a wonderful job of talking about the park. You saw that planned marketing map that was just up on the screen there a second ago. Here's another map you can look at more closely before you leave. But I want you to see what everybody else sees about Kingsboro and how important it is. All of the work that our commissioners have done for all of these years to accumulate the land, to do the infrastructure, to get grants and loans, to be able to make the park all that it is. It's important for you to understand how unique it is. So I'm going to show this video, and I'm going to try to hopefully help you to hear it.
Finding the absolute best site for that next project can be a highly difficult and time-consuming job. But getting it right is extremely important. There are many criteria to consider. The right piece of land, all the necessary infrastructure, water, sewer, electricity, natural gas, telecommunications, great highway access, and intermodal and rail access. The Economic Development Partnership of North Carolina hired a world-renowned site consulting firm, Jones Lang LaSalle, to check out all of those assets in North Carolina. Jones Lang LaSalle reports that perfect site in North Carolina is the Kingsboro Business Park in Edgecombe County, halfway between Rocky Mount and Tarboro. Their report states that the site has all those assets and ample supply for any sized project. Another plus on the Kingsboro Business Park is that a portion of the site has already been prepped and is literally ready for construction. This site is so ready to go, the report says the Kingsboro CSX Select site is the only shovel-ready and competitive site in all of North Carolina, and maybe even the entire southeast of the U.S. If you are looking for a site that will jumpstart your next project, then look no further than the Kingsboro Business Park in Edgecombe County, located halfway between New York and Miami, and at the intersection of I-95 and future I-87.
And I'm going to ask Bob to come up and tell you more about why Kingsboro is very important for us economic development.
Thank you, Eric, and thank you for the opportunity to serve you as a community, because as you've heard, partnership is a partnership. We're a private-public partnership that is supported by Edgecombe County taxpayers, as well as Rocky Mount and the town of Tarboro. And what that allows us to do as a nonprofit, separate from those entities. And one of the things I don't like about this job is a lot of it, you can't be transparent in the things, as Eric said, because you have to respect these companies that are coming into town. They don't want their competitors to know. They may not want their employees to know for some reason, or they just are the kind of folks that they try to keep everything in place until they know everything's ready to go in from a new project. But you gotta, I've been in this job for a little over 2 years, and I don't come out of the traditional economic development, world. I come out of the commercial egg industry, selling England's best eggs and helping to build that brand. And we had a slogan in the egg industry: you sell them or you smell them. Well, that's not the case at economic development. Like Eric described, we may get a call and all of a sudden we're jumping through hoops. We're lining up. We literally line up a team of folks in our office at a conference room table, a whole team of experts. Like I say, from electrical folks, from anybody that would have an impact on a project coming into town. And they'll bring the same group of folks. They may have their engineers, they may have their financial folks, whoever, and pretty much every time they have a question, we have an answer. And it's something that really, really is impressive in coming in this job and learning that, what we have as a resource here as a county and as a region. So, I get up every morning and I think about what I'm going to do that day. And mainly it's
what I'm going to do to get more jobs and more investment into this region. And it's absolutely a pleasure to represent, because we have such a tremendous amount of inventory, valuable inventory, that the county and the city have invested over the years. The legacy of opportunity is just amazing compared to a lot of other places. You got to say, well, what happened to Triangle? What happened to, Natron? And there's reasons for everything, right? And we've learned from that. And one of the things that we learned was this is a valuable piece of property, Kingsboro. And I'll talk about those attributes here in a minute. But it was so that in Natron, we knew it was going to be a long, long process of them to get through their financing and development stage, just like any project. And one of the things that your leaders, your county, the commissioners and staff did, they chose to put an exclusivity agreement, basically saying, we know this property is valuable. You're asking us to take it off the market while you go look at whatever you want to do, kick the tires, and you got to go get your monies. So you got to pay a chunk of money, which they did. And unfortunately, they left. But the fortunate thing about it, the county received a large portion of money for that in terms of paying for the exclusivity of having this project off the market for about a year and a half. Why is it so valuable? We can talk about a lot of things, but you've all heard businesses. What's the first thing that makes a business successful? Anybody tell me? Starts with an L. Location. Well, guess what? You heard it in the video, but we're halfway between Miami and New York. We're at the intersection essentially of I-85 and what is going to be I-87, course 64, 90 million cars a year going up and down 95, probably half of that going up around on 87. So location for distribution. The other thing is we're located through the intermodal. Everybody know what the intermodal is?
Ooh, is it CSX and
Battleboro. Yeah. Essentially, that facility is an inland port. If you go down to Wilmington, they're unloading boats and everything. They have these big cranes. Same thing up there. They take the boxes off of trains and put them on trucks, or trucks put them on trains. That is an excellent opportunity for businesses to come here and take advantage of. If they want to ship product from here to California or to Singapore, or if they got to bring product in, we're at proximity to the rail. That's the other thing, is we have rail access. CSX, this is the CSX select site, meaning within all of CSX railroad world, this is one of their most valuable assets, and they market it as such for projects that are looking for rail. As Eric said, we're the number one site. I tell people we're in the number one site in the number one state to do business in the number one country. So because of that, we have interest coming in from literally all over the world. As you saw, Triangle Tire was a Chinese company. That's one of the things that we've kind of steered not completely away from. We'll listen to any and all opportunities, but we also respect what the community wants and what the balance that to what the community needs. Land, we got the inventory. You can't sell anything unless you got it. And the county has invested along with others. I can't imagine how much, huge amount of money, maybe 200 million, Mr. Chairman, over the years, maybe even more. Not the county itself, but a large portion of that was invested. So got a lot of land. The definition of a mega site is 1,000 plus acres. We have 2,000. And that goes a long ways for a project like was mentioned. There's been some pretty major projects out there in terms of even an automobile facility for manufacturing automobiles, to several other that would take up the whole park. And one of the things we balance is, do we want these big mega projects, or do we want singles and doubles and triples? So we got land to be able to accommodate both of those. Electricity, we're fortunate as a region to be served by Dominion Power as well as Duke is in terms of generation. So we have power coming into the region. I tell people he who has power has projects, because in this day and time, everybody's using power. Back in the day, from what I've been told, George, 2 5 megawatt projects was a lot of electricity. We're looking at 50, 60, 70, 90 megawatt projects now. The whole county of Edgecombe only uses about 80 to 90. So power is essential, and we have that. Not only power coming in, but the transmission lines to service. Fortunately, we also have EMC, Edgecombe Martin Co-op, which probably most of you get your power from. They're excellent, and everybody know Eddie Stocks. Okay, we bring Eddie. He sits down and talks about Edgecombe Martin, and one of the biggest statistics he lays out is the property right out here. They've not had any failure, any interruption at any time for 5 years. I mean, and that's incredible, I guess, in that world. And that's one of the things. Not only we have lots of it, but the reliability of it. What's the other form of energy we have? Anybody? Solar. Yeah, we do. We have lots of solar. There's debates, good and bad, on that. What's the other form? Natural gas. In this day and time, it's becoming more and more important. You'll hear some more about that in a minute. But natural gas is almost as valuable as the actual electricity coming down the lines for a lot of different reasons. And we have a main transmission line within 3 miles of here. You probably don't know that for obvious reasons. The natural gas folks didn't want everybody to know where all the assets are, but we have a lot of natural gas, again, to provide opportunities. Water. Mike can tell you all about the water. We got a lot of water. Everybody know where the waste treatment plant is for Rocky Mount? And the county gets all your water. You may not know it, but our water here in Edgecombe County is some of the best in this country, really. PFAS, you hear that term going out there? It's very, very, I don't think this could be traced, George. I haven't seen the last reports, but we have super high quality. So if we have a beverage company like we did 3 months ago, a group came in, they want to make some specialty teas. Actually, they were looking at the site over here. And the folks from the wastewater treatment plant came in. We bring them in, sit them down. They put a pitcher of water on the big conference room table and said, try it. And they all drank it and they said, wow, it's great water. So I don't know why we buy bottled water, but we do. Great water. We got lots of it. And the Tar River is a great source of that. Then rail, sitting right out here. We talked a little bit about that, how important that is in the location. The other thing, these are technical, but it means a lot. Things like free trade zone. We are also an opportunity zone area as well in an energy community. But basically that says because of we're a tier 1 county, as one of the struggles we have with unemployment puts us in that range. That's bad and terrible, but from our standpoint, that creates an opportunity for a company that wants to come here and help uplift the county. And for that, they're getting other opportunities for tax incentives from the federal government on their income and all the different type of, things that they're having to pay. The other thing, and I'll sit down here in a minute, and I tell people I want power, I want people, and I want potatoes. What does that mean? Well, we got to have power to make things happen, right? Whether it's natural gas, electricity, and we're doing everything we can to increase as much coming into flow, not only for today, but also for the future of our children and grandchildren. Then we want people. We want to have, some people may want this. You may say, Bob, we don't want more people in our area, but we need an influx of people, because if people are wanting to come here, what does that mean about our children? They're going to want to stay here. So we need to have live, work, and play opportunities, not only that will attract people to fill jobs, but also to keep our own talent and our young people in the community. Then potatoes. What does that mean? Well, we still want to have the sweet potato fields. We still want, even though they got gnats and all that kind of good stuff, but we want that rural culture that's so rich in Edgecombe County. It's not only the agriculture, it's the principal story, all these type of things. And when we bring clients in, everybody goes, wow, what a historical story that you have to present. And companies today, that Gen Z or the managers, there are not a lot of gray haired folks that come to our office. That speaks volumes to them. That's almost maybe not as important as power and water, but they want to come into communities where we have culture. Share you 2 stories real quick and then I'll sit down. Prudential Piping. Anybody been over the Tarboro Commerce Center? It's right there by Hitachi. You know where that is? There's a shell building there. Joe came down from Elizabeth City, New Jersey, wanting to move his piping company to somewhere. And he just drove up one Saturday and was a convenience store in Tarboro. Now, I like to say Bob and Tracy and Shanita and all of our team at the partnership sells, but you know who sold that company to come here? It was a clerk in that station that was nice and hospitable. And he said, well, what about doing business down here? Oh, man, she just turned it on. Says a great place to do business. And just, she sold the community. So that's a key part of having a community that's welcoming potential clients to come in to locate here. That makes my job easier. Everybody knows that Amazon. Y'all seen the Amazon building? A lot of cars out there today. I drove by. The parking lot's filled up. So there's probably 80 or 90 folks there. I got a job. I would like to say, well, Bob did a good job calling them up and wheeling and dealing and selling. And they called up, like Eric says, we want to be here. Is that place for sale? Yeah, it's for sale. We want to come and cut a deal. Tarboro cut the deal with them. They own the land. They were sold or closed on Friday, and they had dirt rolling on Monday. In less than a year, it's up and running, and they got people getting paychecks. So we could say we do everything, but sometimes you just got to be in the right place at the right time. Okay. Edgecombe County's the right place at the right time. And, something you need to be proud of as taxpayers, that you've got a site, like Kingsboro, but also some other projects we're working on, that's exciting. Helps me get up in the morning and have the hope we can bring jobs and we can, help with tax revenue in terms of bringing investment. So.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Bob, for sharing that. And I know everybody's itching to hear about data centers, and so that's what we're going to get to now. I do want to, while I'm pulling this the slide presentation back up, one point that I meant to mention earlier is that when we are vetting projects, sometimes our recommendation to the board is no. Sometimes it's not we don't feel that it's a good fit for various reasons. We look at a lot of aspects. We look at, how many jobs will they create? What kind of investment are they making relative to what they're asking for? They might be asking for a lot of land tax incentives, but they're not making a large investment or not creating a lot of jobs. Sometimes we look at things of what they make or the way that they make it. There might be some environmental concerns that we're not so comfortable with. And so sometimes we say no for those reasons. Sometimes the no might be because though we have a lot of the infrastructure here, the utilities that are available, sometimes the amount of utilities, whether it be water, electricity, gas, sometimes what they need or the amount that they need for the product that they're going to make is just way too much. And we might have just enough so that they will be able to operate, but then there'll be very little left for the next company. And so as we've talked about, we've got 2,000 acres just about here at Kingsboro Business Park, and we don't want to partner with a company and bring a company in on one parcel and they use up all of the electricity, all of the water, and then we have little to no capacity left for the rest of the park, or it might take 10, 15 years before that capacity can be increased. And so And that's the reason and that's sort of a good transition into talking about data centers, is that when we first started getting calls about data centers, some of what we knew and then later learned more about is that some of what I'll call a typical data center, if that's such a term, and that being essentially a large building or large buildings that's full of racks with these servers in them. And the servers are processing and holding and storing information for whatever it might be. It might be your Facebook account is on it. It might be your bank needs it to keep your electronic bank records there. It might, whatever it might be, they use a lot of electricity. We have had data centers to come and look at Kingsboro, and they're your typical data center that needs to plug into the grid. And in fact, we had one that came, and the electricity capacity we have now is not enough. They would need more. So our concern was we didn't want to bring a company like that would plug into the grid. They use up all of the capacity and then need more. And then we'd have the rest of the park there. And our partners like Edgecombe Martin and Dominion and Duke Power, you know, they'd be willing to build the infrastructure to bring us more capacity, but it would take a long time to do that. So in our vetting process, sometimes the recommendation to the board is no, it's not a good fit for the county. So mentioning that we've had interest in data centers, I mentioned there's been one, a very large one in particular we've had conversation with that we felt so far is not a good fit. We want to talk about this one in particular. But because we've had interest in data centers, if we wanted to entertain one, we knew that we'd have to figure out where does it fit in our what we call our Unified Development Ordinance. We have what they call countywide zoning. And so in order to build something, you have to determine, okay, where do I want to build it? And does the current zoning there allow for that type of construction, that type of use? And so we had nothing, or we have nothing in our ordinance that speaks to a data center. We looked at other uses and thought, well, can we try to fit it into this use or plug it in over here? And there was just nothing that we had that really fit what they plan to do specifically for this project. So what we decided to do was, because we may have continued interest and opportunities for job creation and investment from data center projects, we need to make sure that first that there's something in our ordinance that would allow it if the board so chose, and also to put in some development standards that we felt like it would make it a project that we would feel more comfortable with here in the county. So I'm going to invite up Mr. Dervin Spell. He is our planning director. And Mr. Spell is going to share some information with you about a proposed amendment to our ordinance to add this language to our ordinance. I do want to mention before I forget, there will be a public hearing at our commissioners meeting this coming Monday, October the 6th. Our meeting is at 6 o'clock. And the board has to have a public hearing before they adopt any text amendment, whatever that amendment is. You will have the opportunity, if you're interested, to speak, share your thoughts on it, and then the board will consider whether they want to adopt those changes. So, Mr. Spell.
Thank you, Eric. And as Mr. Evans mentioned, Edgecombe County has submitted a text amendment application to add data centers and crypto mining operation uses and associated language to the Unified Development Ordinance. And as you see in the slide, these are the sections that language and associated language will be added to. Okay. Oh, thank you. So data centers along with crypto mining operations will only be permitted in the general industrial or M2 zoning district, as well allowed as part of the planned development districts also. data centers will be permitted by right in the M2 zoning district. And as you see on this map behind me, these are the areas in the county that are zoned M2. The larger area is the Kingsboro Industrial Park, and we have a smaller area near NC 97 and Cool Spring Road. So any project that does not locate in an area that is already zoned M2 would have to seek a conditional rezoning. So prior to any conditional rezoning request, developer will have to hold a neighborhood meeting prior to submitting any application for a conditional rezoning application. So, as regarding setbacks and buffers, in our original draft, minimum setback we had was for 50 feet, unless the project shared a lot line with a neighboring zoning district, with a lot that was in the neighboring lot that was zoned residential, in which the setback was to increase to 500 feet. The planning board recommended increasing the minimum setback from 50 feet to 100 feet. And also the planning board recommended that the setback for lot lines shared with residential zone properties, that 500 feet setback will only come into effect if there is an existing or permitted dwelling on that property. Also, the type C buffer will be required, and that's a 40-foot buffer with canopy trees and understory trees on it. Also, additional landscaping may be required that would help any data center to meet the noise levels, maximum noise levels. So as for height requirements, there are no current height requirements for the M2 zoning district. However, if you have a project that is going through the conditional use or plan development process, a condition could be proposed to the developer by the planning board or board of commissioners, or the developer could propose that condition themselves of a limit for height. We're going to noise levels. In our original draft, noise level during the day for any project that borders a property that has a existing or permitted dwelling will be 60 dBAs during the day and 50 dBAs during the night. For projects that are on parcels which the neighboring property do not have any bordering existing or permitted dwellings on it. In the original draft, we had a limit of 75 dBAs for 24 hours for those projects. Planning board looked at that and they made a recommendation. Was part of their recommendations, they recommended that be lowered to 50 dBAs for 24 hours. And as you see dBA chart. So 60 dBA, that would be the same level as you have a normal conversation, or if you go into a restaurant or store hearing background music. 75 dBAs, that'd be the same as if you were using a vacuum cleaner or listening to your car radio. Regarding utility usage, projects must submit annual attestations of electrical and water capacity from public utility providers as a part of their annual zoning compliance permit. The electrical attestation requirement will be waived for project that generates their own electricity for either from private or internal sources. Any on-site generator shall be fully enclosed, meet relevant fire standards, and shall receive all required state permits. Our planning board looked at that, where that last requirement, they added that should cover any federal permits that may be required as well. So staff will be reviewing the original draft also with recommendations made by a planning board to see if there are any other changes that may be recommended for this ordinance amendment. And that's the end of my presentation.
Eric, would you mind explaining a little bit more about that first bullet point about that requirement?
Yes, so regarding the annual attestation, so in the draft ordinance, we're looking at having data centers obtain a yearly zoning permit, in which that permit will be due January of each year, and which part of that requirement would be that the data center operator will have to submit an attestation of water and electrical capacity from those providers. That basically would say that the providers would basically tell us that, yes, there is enough capacity for that data center to use those services and still provide services for the general community.
Are these proposed changes anywhere on the county? Because, like, people like me don't know what an M2 zone is or a type C buffer. So is this on the county website somewhere for us to see these proposed changes?
We have some copies tonight. There's several pages. We've got about 20 copies. You're welcome to take a copy with you. We will also add it to the county's website as well.
Yeah. And as for the type C buffer, I have a copy of my ordinance, so I can go over that with you to show you what the type C buffer look like.
Will you back up to the map showing the M2 zone again?
Yes. Okay.
What are these?
So I was gonna say, so the M2 zone, if you go look at this map that's over at your side, this entire map here is what our M2 zone. It's basically not where you're standing at right now, but if you were to go on the other side of the tracks, you would be sitting in our M2 zone. And that's basically everything that is in the Kingsboro Business Park.
But then there's the other one. Okay.
That is actually up on Joe Lawrence property. Yeah, Joe Lawrence. It's just up north of here.
He owns the property?
I think Joe does.
Yes. So just to make sure you all understand, if this is adopted on Monday night, then the ordinance will say that a data center can only be built in an M2 zone, which these are the two areas, unless otherwise, if someone wants to build one somewhere else, they'll have to go through a rezoning process. As Dervin mentioned, there's also language in there that says that part of a rezoning process is there's a public hearing before the commissioners anyway. That's for any rezoning. But there's also language in here that would say they would also have to have a community meeting of those that may be impacted. That would be their responsibility to hold that meeting in that area where they propose to have.
Exactly. Okay. Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
On the M2, the data center that would be permitted by right, can you put additional restrictions on that? Or is it strictly limited to the restrictions in the proposed UDF?
Yes, as for any data center permit by right, it would go by the whatever standards that will be accompanied by that in the UDO.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I was wondering if you could put it back to the slide about the noise level.
Yes, ma'am.
And just as, I was gonna say, just an example, when we're talking about 60 dBAs, so if me and Mr. John here just gonna go talk, and I sat down beside Mr. John, and I said, how's this stuff, let's talk to you.
That'd be great.
That's about 60 dBAs. This is just kind of an example, so.
Yeah, two things. I would have my DB meter on while you were speaking, and you were around 56, 57.
Okay.
My question is, with the new requirements, and then resubmitting at the end of every year for zoning approvals,
Mm-hmm.
is there anything in there as fines or anything else if they should go beyond? In other words, they say they're going to use about 1 million gallons of water, and all of a sudden we find out they use 15, or 1.5 million. So, is there anything, because that's costly to the county and to the infrastructure system. And so there should be some repercussions for someone coming in not doing water, electricity, anything, doing something more than what they have said they would do. Sound, for instance, what's the repercussions if they're more than 60 dBs at the borderline?
Yeah, so as far as and get them to mitigate the sound, and like I said, that could come by planting more vegetation or them installing a sound barrier. As for the annual the annual zoning permit, as far as ensuring that there's enough water or there's enough electricity capacity, in the case that, you may have one of those permits in which, utility provider says that there's not enough, water capacity. At that point in time, county staff will, take a look at that situation and, figure out, what's the, best route to, address that situation. And as I mentioned also, there are some other areas in this draft that we have to take a look at also. And like I said, there may be other suggestions that we may, move forward or suggest for this ordinance standard.
Language be added at the end of this currently, or is this what's going to be presented? Because, once they come, they build, they do, and they exceed all the sounds requirements, and all we do is slap a sign on them. That's not going to do anything. They've built, they're here, they're just going to say, okay, here's the money. We're going to keep on making all the sound we want to make.
Well, one of the things we need to keep in mind is that code, that zoning enforcement process is not any different than any other process. If your piece of land is zoned residential and you have somehow overnight built some business that's not zoned there, it goes through the same process, goes through the planning department, letters that are sent, visits that are made. Ultimately, there could be court involvement. We've got a situation like that now. It's not industrial at all, but we've got situations. So there are processes in place that are not any different than the way they currently are now.
It's just like they have language beforehand that would, keep us from reacting. So.
Our ordinance does, outside of this new language that's going to be added, already speaks to what that zoning enforcement process is. And that would apply to any person that is violating a zoning where they are including this. Okay. So if you don't mind, let's hold on that. If you want to hold on that, I want to make sure we get through what we want to share first, and then we'll come back. I want to make sure that we get your question. Okay. Thank you. So let's share of what we know about this project. Many of you are familiar with this company, probably more so through the special use permit that was submitted to the town of Tarboro. The company is called Energy Storage Solutions. We've been having conversations with them for some time now, gone through similar to the process that Mike described earlier. As we talked about before, some of these move fairly quickly. This has been a relatively fast one, so we've had to learn quickly, ask a lot of questions quickly. This is the same company. The setup is similar, if any of you attended the meetings with Tarboro, similar to that project in the sense of this is not, I used my air quotes earlier, a typical data center. This is not a typical data center. There is a data center component, big building, racks with servers, lights blinking, all of that. This also has power generation capacity on site. They plan to use natural gas. As Bob mentioned, we have natural gas capacity here in the county, particularly here at Kingsboro. They plan to use that natural gas to power generators that will then in turn generate electricity. They will generate more. What they've shared with us, they will generate enough electricity to run their facility. Now, going back to what Mr. Spell just shared a moment ago, before they get their permit, they have to have their power provider to attest that no, they don't need power from us, or they only need it for backup, but this is how much, and there's plenty. So that they will have to have that attestation as he shared. So, first of all, let me show you the layout. I'm going to show you a video in just a second so you can see some aerial footage. This right here is QVC Boulevard. Of course, we know QVC was over here. The remaining facility is over here. I'm sorry, it is right here. It is right here in front of it. This is just behind what was QVC, right down the road here. The count right now is actually 2 parcels of land right here. This is about 21, 22 acres here, and this is 100 acres here. Both are currently owned by the county. On the map that Mike showed earlier that we use to market and plan for how should we best market Kingsboro, they are noted as paths L and M. So this company, ESS, Energy Storage Solutions, they plan to build their data center facility on those 2 parcels. We expect they will likely combine these 2 lots and make it 1 parcel. You'll see that there are some areas they can't use because of wetlands or other reasons. So they have identified here, at least preliminarily, what they expect to be usable land here. So that's proposed layout. Again, if you've seen the project Tarboro, same approach, the layout probably a little bit different because of the shape of the parcel. So what they have shared with us is that just for this one project right behind QVC, they anticipate it to be a total of $2 billion of investment, potentially more, but at least $2 billion of investment. They anticipate that it would create 500 jobs. Now, when they first told us that, we asked some questions because all that we've ever heard, as most of you, is a lot of data centers, your typical data center, big building, servers, flashing lights. Not a lot of people work in those types of facilities because it's so automated. Some people do work there, but not a lot of people. But being that this facility has both data center, power generation, it will also have a component to technology that they plan to use to capture the carbon that will be put out from burning the natural gas. All of those components, they have estimated it will create 500 jobs. Those jobs include jobs like IT technicians, facility engineers, maintenance technicians, and folks who would provide security. As we've mentioned, it will use natural gas to generate power. It will use carbon capture technology to address air pollution concerns. They have shared that they anticipate it will need approximately 500,000 gallons of water per day, which is available. And I want to ask Mike, if you would here, tell us what our current water capacity is at Kingsboro and what it will be after the project is complete.
Yeah, so our current capacity here, obviously, if you rode in, you see all our water storage tank. That's a 1 million gallon tank. We have about 1.2 million gallons of water capacity at our Kingsboro Business Park. We currently only use a little less than 200,000 a day of that capacity. So we have a little over 1 million gallons of excess capacity in the Kingsboro Business Park. We actually currently have funding in place, and we're slated to start construction probably in January, redoing our booster station, which some of you may know on Old 64. It's a little brick hut that's sitting right down the road. That is the booster station that supplies water to this site. Once we upgrade that facility, we will have a capacity up north of 4 million gallons per day. So as far as water capacity, we can more than exceed what their need is.
Thank you, Mike. We talked earlier about the process. Most of these economic development projects come to us and they say, you need to entice us to come. You need to give us some incentives to come, because we're also looking at 2 or 3 other places. And they oftentimes will ask land to be given either at no cost or at low cost. They ask for tax incentives. Oftentimes they ask for incentives from the state. That's your typical economic development project. This project has not asked for any incentives of the county or the state. They have offered to purchase the land for a total of the 2 parcels of $1.8 million. In fact, again, at the meeting on Monday night, they had made an offer to purchase on this first piece here, with an option to purchase the 100 acres. We have to do what is called publish a notice of upset bid. So that was published in the paper. If anybody wants to come in, they offered to purchase this piece here for $385,000. So if anybody else wanted to come and outbid that, you have the opportunity, or had the opportunity. There's a 10-day notice period. We received no other bidders. So the board will be on our agenda for Monday night. The board will consider taking action on approving the sale of that parcel there and the option to purchase this here. What they've said to us is that they plan to move forward with the purchase of this within 120 days. But again, the board, that will be an action item for our board to consider at their meeting on Monday night. I will note that there is a third project, the first one being Tarboro, the second one being this one. There's a third project that you may have heard about. I think the company talked about it in some of their public meetings they've attended, that they're looking at some property just west of here, in and around Powell Road. They're still in the process of determining exactly where they might want to do that and working out the details of that. I will say, you saw that map just a moment ago identifying what currently is zone M2. Where they're looking at is not zone M2. It is agricultural residential. And therefore, if a project is to move forward there, even if these text amendments are approved on Monday night, these would not apply to that project because it is outside of the M2 zone. So if they want to pursue that, they will have to apply for rezoning. They will have to have a community meeting. They will have to come before the board, a public hearing. So it's a whole nother process than this project right here.
Is this the same company?
Same company, yes.
And what would they be getting from the South gallons of water per day? What would they be getting no water?
Same system.
Same system. I want to show you, I want to quickly show you, this is footage from a drone, just to show you. It began at the very front of that road, QVC Boulevard at Kingsboro. So you'll see up to this point, and some of you may have even driven down that road before, just so you can get some idea of what those 2 parcels look like back behind what was QVC. Obviously, you see the railroad track is running parallel to what's currently QVC Boulevard. And as you see, that is what, that's the facility there. Currently, the paved road ends there. There's still a road bed that goes back to the parcel that would have to be developed. The company is proposing to develop that road themselves. They may pursue some funding from the state to do that. They've not asked for that yet. They can't ask the county because we just don't have the funds to, and we don't do roads. The county's not in the business of doing roads. If when the road is developed, if it's built to DOT standards, it likely then, when it's completed, be turned over to DOT, and QVC Boulevard will just simply continue out to however far they might develop. So right at the tree line here, this is where pad L begins. This is just behind what's QVC's or the current owner's property. About right there is where the 21 acres breaks, and then it goes into the 100-acre parcel. Backside of QVC.
The drone is just showing the M2.
It's just showing those two parcels, the 21 or 20.
Past that to where you said it's agricultural, residential. It don't go that far.
Good question. What they're proposing to purchase from the county is all M2.
I mean, what I'm looking at on the drone, you're not going that far past the M2 more.
Just where that drone turned around is about the end of our property. And now just next to it is agricultural residential. Yes, sir. And so that's why there's language in the proposed text amendment that says that it's has to be 500 feet setback.
If there's a home on that residential zone property.
If there were a home, then it'd have to be up to 500. If not, then it can be up to
Either 50 or 100 feet, whatever is decided, the smaller setback.
Got it. So again, coming back up to so now what we'd like to do is just take a quick break. If you have questions that you've written down or comments, just comments you want us to hear, feedback that we should receive, we'd like to get that. And again, restrooms are down the hallway on your left. We still have some water, some donuts back there in the back. You're welcome to them. If you have something written down, if you hold it up, we'll come around and collect those.
I will speak to you just a second. Anything about any I don't know anything about that. So when I looked at them online last night, just front of So do your dad.
I know the two different sides there. Yes.
Okay, so is it, so that's 60.
Back in 6 months.
Councilman Carter, I texted Tammy, I don't know if I saw her.
Think about it. One.
Was this, now, is this, this is what you present?
They said it's a refrigerated warehouse.
Well,
When I west from 97 going down Cool Spring Road on the left.
Right there. Where is that? That little green thing up there.
So that's near the intersection of 97 and Cool Spring Road. But that's in the county through the city.
Right.
That's not right now.
I know it's in the county, but it's in my city.
You told me you called the city right now.
It's in the jurisdiction, right?
Some kind of refrigerated warehouse. Then that's to the right.
Let me, hold on one second.
I called Derwin the next day.
I thought you said, I know that's where that is. And 97.
Yeah, I'm talking about if you come out of 97, you go down Cool Spring Road to it's about a lake, it's on the left, they're building a massive
Yeah,
between
I
there
thought that's what
and the
that
wastewater
was.
treatment plant. When I called you told me to call Rocky because it's not in Edgewood County.
Okay,
I'm talking about it's like right in here. So what?
Let me see, scroll
What
up.
portion of that is that to the right of Joel's house?
Let me see if I can pull up Joe's house. Let me see. So,
Because when I called you, you said that was not in our, to the city right now.
so this is his
Yeah, okay, then where their building is right about in there.
in there. So,
Between the wastewater treatment plant and that.
so this is green area is City of Rocky Mounts zoning
Yeah, because you told me to
jurisdiction.
call them.
Mm-hmm.
And they told me it was a refrigerated warehouse. So where is this?
So
that you said is on to the right?
that is right here.
It's to the right of.
Yeah, so it's to the right of, so that's right there, and then what you're talking about with the City of Rocky Mount is right there,
Yes,
that
right beyond his
refrigerated
little house.
warehouse.
So where's, it's in the field beside of Joel's house?
If you go to Cool Springs.
Yeah, I know what, yeah, hold on 1 second.
You know where it is, don't you?
Oh, yeah, I know.
Okay.
Yeah, I know. We're trying to figure out what it is.
Cost Bob.
Yeah, so that's his, well, I guess this is his home, or a home area, so. Oh, yeah,
So where's that other little square, this M, that would be,
No, this is the M2 right here.
and
This
how
is
far is
the,
that? This is Joel's house. So is that field beside of Joel's house?
that would be, so yeah, that's,
Somewhere out in there.
mhm.
So it's further away from his house.
Yeah, so you're going up, so that's 97, just go up the curve, and so that's Cool Spring Road.
Right, yeah.
Mhm.
So this where it is. So somewhere there. Okay. So it's, okay.
So it's not the same thing.
No.
Okay. So not just, is that big or big? They got signs, you got the sign in, they go out this way. I've never seen anything that, and these folks, they dropping 4, 5, 7 times from these jobs. They dropping 4, 5, 6, 5 a day.
People satisfied.
We're trying.
There would be later, they would
And I think they're time.
Those two parcels. What they say, they say, that's why we have so
All right, we're going to go ahead and get started again. All right, so as Mike is sorting through some of the other questions, I'll start with these two. And these two questions are regarding transparency. The first one says, what do you actually mean by they don't want to be transparent? That's a good question. As we mentioned early in the process, a lot of these companies are trying to maintain their business competitive advantage. That's why they come with code names, because they don't want their competitor to know that they're looking in Edgecombe County or looking anywhere else. Now, at some point, they have to take that veil off. If the board is going to eventually say we come to an agreement, there are incentives on the table, we're either going to give or sell land, that has to be done in a public meeting, there has to be a public hearing, and the company has to be named. So just initially, these companies are trying to protect their business advantage. And so it's in closed session in North Carolina. A unit of local government can only go into closed session, as they call it, closed door. Everybody have to leave except for the board and the staff that they invite to stay in for only 3 reasons. One is for personnel, one is because of a legal matter, and the other one is because of economic development. And that is so that up until the appropriate time that those business interests are protected. But before it's all said and done, we have to know everything that they're going to do, who they are, what they plan to do, and ultimately the public has to know as well. From time to time, we come across some projects that it's unusual, but some projects from the start, they don't mind telling you who they are. They don't mind the public knowing. This project in particular was one of those, probably because it was trying to move so fast, but that's fairly rare. But that's the reason why that they initially conceal their name, things like that. But ultimately, all of that has to see the light of public viewing. And the second was similar to it. If you can't be transparent, how can you trust what they say environmental wise? That you're absolutely right. So those sometimes when they first show up at the table, sometimes they make sure they're not wearing a company shirt and they won't tell us who they are. They go strictly by their code name. We've sat at the table with some companies where it's super competitive, so they're super secretive. You know, before they answer a question, they look around at each other, make sure they don't say the wrong thing or the right thing to the wrong people. That so again, they can protect that business interest. But as that process evolves, we cannot make an offer of anything unless we ultimately know who they are and what they plan to do on the site. Okay. So it goes through phases. Very good question.
Eric, I might add to that permitting process.
You stand up, Cindy.
Yeah. One thing I add to that, there's things like the Department of Water Quality and air quality. So, for example, there's a question about air issues. There's restrictions on what the permitting that they'll have to meet the game before they can come out of the ground. So all those will have to be verified too, and everything ultimately is double checked when they lay out their site plans in general, the guidance of the county. So yeah, that permitting process sometimes can be laborious, and sometimes to the point where they say, you know, we're not going to go down that road because some states process is better than others. North Carolina has a pretty extensive process in terms of permitting for water, air, and air quality.
Good point, Bob. Thank you. All right, Mike, what's next?
So the next question was, how does this help the tax base of Edgecombe County?
Okay, so for example, this project is, what do we say?
$2 billion investment.
$2 billion investment. And so our tax rate is 89 cents. Too much, I'm sure y'all want to say. 89 cents, right? And so the math on that, just if you want to calculate it for yourself, just easy math the way I do it, you take that big number and you first divide it by 100 because it's 89 cents per $100 in value. You take that big number, divide it by 100, and then multiply it by 0.89. So for a $2 billion project, that number is
$17.8 million.
$17.8 million. Just to put that in context, the county's total operating budget is a little over $80 million. So it's huge. It's significant. These numbers, up until the last few years, most of the economic development projects that looked at us or looked at any other place were in the hundreds of millions of dollars. And that was a really big deal. Triangle Tire a few years ago, I think it was at $800 million. That was a big deal. I think the board would have given me away for that project if they wanted me. That was a huge deal. But now the numbers get even bigger, especially on these data center projects. But also Natron Energy, which unfortunately their project came apart, no fault of ours. That project was $1.4 billion. So it will be a significant investment into the county. Remember I said at the very beginning of our conversation, we need tax base to alleviate some of this tax burden that all of us are carrying, right? It takes so much money to run a county, to put a deputy car on the road, to get inspectors out in the field and all. It costs money to do that. So the more the tax base that we have, the less the burden that we all have to carry. And the bigger the number, the more helpful it is. Mike mentioned earlier about the incentive process. Sometimes these companies will say, usually in fact, these companies will say, and people can say, well, I don't like how economic development works. Well, until somebody changes the rules for everybody, if we're going to be in the game to get some new investment, new jobs, we have to sort of play by those rules. Oftentimes these companies will say, I've looked at 3 places and honestly, I can go to either 3 of those, including here. How bad do you want me? And so oftentimes we offer tax incentives. So we will say, okay, if you locate here and you invest at least this amount and you create at least these number of jobs, then when you pay your tax bill, they have to pay it first. In North Carolina, we can't waive tax bills. They have to pay it first. And then if typically the percentage that we'll offer an incentive is, we'll say you will get back 50% of those taxes over a 5-year period, sometimes 10-year period, depending on the size of the project. They have to pay it first, and then we have to give back if the board agrees to that, and that's all done in a public meeting, according to that percentage. Again, in the case of this project and a couple others we're looking at that are not data center related, we're able to have some conversations that they're not asking for incentives.
And one more thing, they got to prove they've met the employment numbers and the investment numbers.
That's correct. You're absolutely right. But if we're going to do the deal with a particular company, remember we said at some point we got to know who they are, what they do. It's all got to be in writing, and it's got to be in a public meeting. We have a public hearing. We put notice. We invite you. There will be what they call an economic development investment agreement or incentive agreement. It's a thick document because our attorney will work with their attorney and put all of those stipulations into a document that they have to agree to. We have to agree to, our board agrees to on behalf of the county, that spells out all those things. You will invest X number of dollars, create X number of jobs. If you do that, this is what you will get in return. For example, Triangle Tire, in that incentive agreement says part of the incentive was we will give you the land, 400 acres. Then you have to start building by a certain period of time. If you don't, you have to give that land back. And they didn't start building, so they had to give the land back. Okay?
I was going to ask you, with that number you threw out, the $80 million, that is our typical operating budget, how much of that is actually tax revenue?
Our ad valorem tax revenue is around $34 million. Our second largest revenue stream is sales tax. And then we have a number of other revenue streams that come in. So of $35 million, a project like this will add another $17 million. Yes, good point.
One of the next question was, will something like this keep other industries from wanting to come to Kingsboro?
You know, I can't answer that for other industries. I think that who the industry might be will have to decide that for themselves. I will say that as you've seen the maps that we've had up, it certainly leaves plenty of room. My battery might be gone. Oh, there it is. So again, this is what was QVC. This is where this project is looking. It still leaves all of this that the county owns, that other industry, if they're interested in Kingsboro Business Park, could locate. The park is so big that really you could have somebody located here, somebody located here, and they barely see each other. I do want to point out this, what we label as K. It is marketed as part of Kingsboro Business Park. The county does not own this. Carolinas Gateway Partnership, they do have an option to purchase that so that if a project comes that's interested in that they have access to it. But what the county owns is this. It is this is 6-4 alternate here. This is the new Leonard Wiggins Parkway here. This is Corning. The county owns this corner here. We did own this. This was given to Corning as part of their incentive agreement. The county still owns this here. This is the river running on the backside of this. This is what was Mid Lakes Mobile Home Park. This is Harts Mill Run Road. And so the county owns those parcels there, this parcel here, and back across here. The county also owns what we label as E and D, that is just in that direction, just across the railroad track there. Okay.
Can I make a comment to that too?
Yes.
You know, you heard me talk about power, and we were talking about this earlier. There's going to be so much power generated in this facility. One of the things that happened in California with the fires, there were data centers out there that had backup and generation. In many of those cases in natural disasters, they just shut down the data centers and they had power for the community. In this case, there's going to be so much backup power that's going to be provided through the system to the point this is really down the road possibility, but recruiting other companies here, we potentially could be our own utility or in conjunction with this company to generate power not only for themselves, but for the park itself and the community. So if I was going to answer that question, it's an asset, just like lots of water, lots of gas. One thing we've not talked about is fiber. The other reason you got to have data center or internet capability, maybe not at your house, but the trunk lines and everything here too. So it just brings more attention for better projects, and we got other sites.
Good. Thank you.
What about the water, though? What about water on the water?
I see. I was holding off on that because that's kind of like my forte.
Okay.
I was the former utility director for the county before I became assistant, so yeah, kind of beat you to the punch on that.
Sorry.
But that is, if you don't mind.
Come on up here.
So that was. I'm not a social media person. I try to stay off of it more and more the older I get, especially when it comes to issues like this, because everybody's got an opinion, and sometimes I just don't want to hear them. So no offense to anybody. So I read a lot of the topics and a lot of the questions that were on social media, especially regarding this place looking in Tarver. And one of the things that I saw time and time again was water, wastewater, natural gas. We don't have it. They're going to use up every little bit we got. That is, I can't speak for Tarver. I'm only speaking for Kingsboro Business Park. That is not the case. So the water that is provided to Kingsboro Business Park does not come from Tarver. Edgecombe County purchases its own water from Tarver and Rocky Mount. We do not produce our own water. We are a purchase system only. So all of the water that comes to Kingsboro Business Park comes from the city of Rocky Mount. We purchase it through them. Rocky Mount currently has 20 million gallons of capacity. They have 2 water plants that pull off of the reservoir. Of those 2 plants, they actually only run 1 water plant at a time. They don't have enough customers to run both plants simultaneously. So they only use about 7 to 8 million gallons of that 20 million gallon capacity on a daily basis. And that includes the 900,000 that we purchase from them on a daily basis for all of our citizens. So as far as the question goes is, if they come in and use 500,000 gallons a day, would that put us in short supply? No. Our contract currently with Rocky Mount only allows for 900,000 a day. What would happen is, if they were to come in and build and they needed 500,000, we would do an amendment to that contract to allow for an additional 500,000 a day. Rocky Mount would love to use their excess capacity. They hate having to alternate between their 2 plants. They would love to have both of them running simultaneously. They would love to have a problem of having to build on to a new plant or to an existing plant. And like I said earlier, we have 1.2 million gallons of capacity currently at Kingsboro. When I threw out 200,000, that is probably being very liberal. I mean, it's probably more along the lines of just north of 100,000 a day. Obviously, a lot of that came from when QVC was here. They were using typically around about 100,000 a day. Also, this is a piece that I use when I'm talking to these businesses that come. It's nothing that we're proud of, but on the flip side, we are proud of it. A lot of y'all know what happened in 2021 in December. QVC burned down. Largest structure fire in the history of North Carolina. We had, and if anybody knows anything about firefighting, which I know very little about it, other than they use a lot of water. During that fire that lasted for over 4 days, it took us over, I think, 5 or 6 days to put that fire out. During that time, we had over 70 fire departments that showed up to help put that fire out. Think about it, 70 fire departments. They had ladder trucks. There were 3 ladder trucks. And so if you understand the difference between a ladder truck and a pumper truck, or a hauler, pump and haul truck, and I'm sure there's another term for it, I just forgot. Ladder trucks are hooked directly to fire hydrants. They're not bringing the water with them. They're using the water off of the hydrants. They were stationed in key places around QVC where they were blowing water on top of it. They were pulling off of those hydrants simultaneously. Meanwhile, there was 3 hydrants that were being used for pump and haul trucks. that were running around the clock. Imagine now you've probably got 40 or 50 trucks here that are running nonstop, filling up, pumping water, pumping water, pumping water. Our system never lost pressure during those 5 days. Anybody that's on that same line, because that same line feeds everybody down Highway 64 all the way back to Rocky Mount, you're on that same line that feeds Kingsboro Business Park. That pressure never dropped. It never got below 30 PSI. You have to stay above 20 PSI according to the state. We never dropped below 30. We never ran out of water. Rocky Mount was able to supply everything we need. We called them. We said, hey, we got a problem. They said, well, yeah, we know. Our plant is more than sufficient to handle what you got. And they never fired up the other plant. They ran their same plant. So the question is, well, the river's going to run dry. I get that. And also, Tarver and Rocky Mount both pull off a reservoir in the river. They do not use any kind of well systems. So it's all surface water is what is considered. With that being said, even right now, I don't think I've seen the river this low since I think about 07 or 08. When there's parts of the Tarver River you can walk across and your ankles don't get wet. So everybody's kind of on edge a little bit. We're not going to have water. I have not confirmed this with the town manager of Tarver, but back in 07, when the water was this low, and their inlet where they bring water in through the river, they still had over 10 million gallons a day coming by their inlet with as low as it is right now. So as far as running out of water, until you really start seeing these Rocky Mount, Tarver starting to put implementations on water usage, I'm not saying you shouldn't be concerned. But also you don't need to run around like your hair is on fire. They closely monitor this on a daily basis. The state does as well. They're constantly calling Tarver, Rocky Mount, what do your levels look like? And so I promise you, when these levels get this low, they've already got action plans in place. But as far as the availability of the water that we have, this is not going to, we have built our system for these companies that want to come in and are big users. 500,000, you can talk to Bob, that is low from what we have seen other companies. We've had some companies come in here that want 4 and 5 million gallons a day. And as it stands, we can't supply that. But with our future investment and what we're working towards, we would be able to supply that. And with everything coming from Rocky Mountain, we would be fine. Wastewater as well, we can supply about 1.2 million gallons a day of wastewater. All of our wastewater goes to Rocky Mount for treatment. Their treatment plant is only running at about 40% capacity right now. They also would love to run that at about 80 to 100% capacity. I mean, I think their capacity there again is about 20 million gallons. They're only using about 6 to 7 million gallons a day. So we've got that. That's not an issue. Another question I heard brought up, and was brought up by y'all as well in Tarver as well, was because they are going to be natural gas users for the generation of power. Well, Piedmont doesn't have that much natural gas. Well, they do. They actually have an abundance of natural gas that they would bring in here. If this company were to exceed what Piedmont has, this company would have to pay for an additional trunk line to come in. And correct me if I'm wrong on this. Now, this is the way I heard it. They would have to pay for an additional line to come in to be able to supply anything over what they are saying they would use on a daily basis if Piedmont can't provide it with the current infrastructure. Also, a question I heard was, so once they come in and start using all of these resources, where does that leave the customers? The customers are first. And when it comes to Piedmont Natural Gas, the customers, they have to supply their customers first. Then, if their excess capacity is there and it's enough to supply these companies, they would do so. If they need more than what is available, that company would have to pay for the upgrades. The same thing goes with power. Like I said earlier, I think it's about 240 megawatts of power is what's available at Kingsboro Business Park. And I think the last I heard from Eddie was they were only using about 18 megawatts of power of that 240 capacity. So we've got a lot of power available, not only through EMC, but also through Dominion Energy. Several months ago, we talked about data centers. We had a large data center looking at our property. They were actually wanting the entire park. They were looking to use somewhere 900 megawatts of power is what they were looking for. They knew we didn't have it, but they're also on a main trunk line that Dominion supplies. So Dominion would do upgrades. This company would pay for the upgrades. It would take about 5 to 6 years for it to be upgraded if everything was available. Obviously, I think there was a question here about tariffs. Tariffs have put a kind of a restraint on some of the equipment that is available, especially when it comes to transformers and stuff like that with electricity. But I guess what I'm trying to say in a nutshell is a lot of the providers for the utilities for any business park, let alone ours, we would meet our customer need first. And if any upgrades were needed, they would have to pay for those upgrades. It would not affect anything that you guys currently have. And I think another question was, would it make our utility rates go up? No, it would not. Because the way we purchase, and I'm just speaking for water and wastewater, I don't think it would be for electricity or natural gas as well, but water and wastewater, because we purchase ours from the city of Rocky Mount, the more we purchase, the less it is. So in the initial, I think we're paying about $3 per 1,000 gallons for the first whatever it is. As that continues to climb, those prices go down. They decrease with the more you use. So you would not see an increase in your utility rates. I'm not going to sit here and say you'd see a decrease because, y'all would hold me to that. So, but you would not see an increase in your utility rates. I was trying to think, I think there was one more, and I guess while I'm here, as far as utilities go, is there any other separate questions about utilities that maybe I didn't cover that? I think I covered everything that somebody asked, but now that I've told you that, is there something specific?
Where is Dominion and where is EMC service this call?
So EMC and Dominion are actually split. So it's kind of funny because Pad B, depending on where a company locates on Pad B is the only, well, I think one of the only sites we have that is a choice site. So Dominion, you can see the main trunk lines that come through that are owned by Dominion. So as long as that company is able to locate a section of their building in Dominion's territory, they have a choice that they can use Dominion or EMC. Now, everywhere else in our park, like Pad C, Pad D, they are all provided by EMC. They would not be able to get Dominion. But Pad B is a choice site. And I think maybe R and a couple others up north. But so most of our park is going to be covered by EMC.
You may want to mention that Dominion is the source supplier.
They are, yes.
To the transmission. So EMC has to dance with Dominion as well, because EMC is the local provider and has distribution. And that was why co-ops were created. The Dominions and the Dukes of the world didn't want to send a power line out 20 miles out the country. That's why the co-ops were created. And what's really exciting recently, the co-ops can get grants to build the substations and whatnot. In the past, they would have to pay for those substations. Well, have the customers pay for it. For Dominion, they would come along and offer a free substation to a project like Natron. And it's really making it a better competitive situation. And like I said earlier, the service level that EMC provides is a great selling point for us. So we're really fortunate to have it both ways.
On the utility side, do we know what the estimated 500,000 gallons of water is going to be used for? Because
yes,
if you look at the size of QVC, what it was, and they were using somewhere between 100 and 200,000 gallons, the amount of employees they had, these folks are going to have less than what QVC had. So what is that water being used for?
So, theirs is going to be strictly for cooling. There will be some domestic use. And when I say domestic, that's somebody using the bathroom, stuff like that. QVC was mostly domestic. Now, QVC did something that was different than a lot of other companies I've ever seen, is they actually tested their fire system on a weekly basis. So we would see spikes every week. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but on the right side of their building, they had this big 12-inch line. If you rode by at the right time, they'd have valves open and water just flushing out of it. What they were doing was testing their fire system to make sure it was working properly. But other than that, it was 100% domestic usage. this company, they have a small amount of domestic, but it will be for cooling. I don't know if you've ever been in a server room. But Jason back here in the back, our IT guy, sometimes he'll let me in hours, especially on a hot day if you want to get cold really fast, because they have to stay, what is it, around 45, 50 degrees? Yeah, you should have just said yeah. No, I'm just made me look like I know what I was talking about. But they have to stay really cool. And what you're talking about, our server room is just a small closet, and you're talking about now what 400,000 square foot building full of servers from the floor all the way to the top. They're going to use this water for cooling, but they're also going to have a part of it that's going to be recycled water. So while some of that water will come out as wastewater, some of it's going to be recycled, put back through, and used again. So they're throwing out the 500,000, but when we met with a lot of their technical team about a month ago, I want to say I talked with the main guy that was handling the water side of it, and he said that could be a number that was as low as 300,000 or 400,000, depending on how their recycling worked. And a lot of it too, it depends on atmosphere, where they're at. Obviously, if they're up north, that's going to be a lot less water than if they're located in Florida. So it all depends on where they're at as well.
All right, let's keep going through your question. I want to make sure we get to most, if not all of them. Thank you, Mike. That's good stuff.
So the next one was about EPA regulations, and I know Bob hit on that a little bit. I don't know if both of you want to tag team or Bob or whoever. As far as the regulations, obviously the county has permits and stuff they have to get, but as far as the state and the EPA.
And just like, and I'll start, Bob, if you want to add, any company that locates anywhere, they have various levels of permitting. Some local permitting, zoning, building permits. Then they're going to disturb over a certain amount of land, which like they obviously would here. They have to have a stormwater permit. They have to make sure that they contain water on site, don't let it get off site untreated. And then depending on the operation, sometimes they have to get other environmental permits that we don't do, that the state provides. That will be air quality, water quality, and other things. All of that is done at the state level. So those are permits that have to be done. We don't do them here locally at the county, but they have to have all of the permitting done, complete, and signed off before Durbin will issue what they call a certificate of occupancy, just like if you were moving into a new home that you're building. Anything else to add to that?
Yeah, the other thing is 500 jobs going down that road. We also consult with DOT to make sure there's enough traffic capabilities to be able to handle traffic with the road. So all those studies go into play once they get a final plan down. A lot of work goes into the permitting side. There's people that make a lot of money engineering and getting those permits correct. And a company of this size, a project of this size, well, I don't care if it's a small operation, but it all comes down to water and care quality of the maintenance.
What is 500?
Yeah.
Which I think, Eric, if you want to address it again on our slides, and we've seen the reports, like a lot of these companies, just like over at the CSX, and I ran a company, will contract out to specialized employment companies. And they presented a 32-page study. Maybe I got it on my phone. And it listed out all the job descriptions, all the pay rates, their schedules, even down to, I think they're going to run a 3-on, 2-off schedule kind of concept. And I mean, all the way down to that detail. But that's pretty much what it's going to be. IT, facility engineers, maintenance technician, and security. And so all of those come into play, and all of those are trainable residents. You don't see anything up there. We have facility engineers. That's not somebody with a 4-year degree. They don't have for that. That's somebody that is going to run that facility, and kind of like a train engineer. They run the locomotives. So those are folks that can be trained here. We'll still use community college, and they'll be bringing in some 4-year degree folks too, pretty much every day.
Well, and one of the things that we do with all these projects, including this one, is, we're always happy to hear about jobs being created. But when it company locates anywhere, not everybody just in that county is going to fill those jobs. They come from all over. When QVC burned, we got a report saying that their employees came from about 21 counties. So they come from all over. In eastern North Carolina, we've got good roads. People don't mind commuting. So parallel with all of this work is we're already having conversation, not just for this project, but for other ones. We want to make sure that there are mechanisms in place to help Edgecombe County residents have as good of a shot at these jobs as anybody from any other county. Even for this particular project, we've already been having conversations with Dr. Greg McLeod, the president of Community College, some of his team. They're already looking at the list of potential jobs for this project to see, okay, what programs do we already have that match these skills that are needed? If, as you know, in North Carolina, community colleges are very flexible. So if they don't have a program, they can fairly easily create a program, because we want to make sure that if this is approved and is being built, that we have a program in place with partners like the community college to help Edgecombe County residents to have as good a shot at these jobs as any other. Again, not just for this project, but for all of the projects.
One more thing I add to that, a lot of the conditions for these inducement things is not only job numbers, but the average wage for Edgecombe's 48,000 and a piece. They got to pay at least that. In this case, we're approaching 70,000 on average, and full benefits. And so when we go back and do the audits, we'll audit, make sure the average hits the average numbers, and the employees will get their benefits too. So both of those hit.
Question, where is this technology been proven? Where do we see this at? Where can we see this at?
What technology in particular?
Carbon capture technology is this kind of a facility.
So I won't even pretend to be an expert on it. I know that there are data centers and other facilities and other places that use similar technology. It's a relatively new technology. I will say that even your typical industrial factories and facilities, will have some type of gas burning characteristics to it. So that won't be unlike some other manufacturing facilities that you see. It is a relatively new facility, but then that goes back to those environmental permits that they have to get from the state, including air quality and water quality. Yes.
Out of the 500 jobs possibility,
Mm-hmm.
have we already analyzed how many citizens we have work ready now with the skills that are going to be needed?
No, we don't know that, and that's a great question, but it goes back to the point that if this project is approved, we want to make sure that we get as many Edgecombe County residents in the pipeline to get a shot at these jobs as possible. We have the benefit that we've got a great community college. They do a lot of training. I think some of these positions, like you'll see maintenance technicians, they have maintenance technicians, or they might call it different things, in lots of applications already that other companies use, and the community college has training for that. We'll need your help to do it, because the community college can have the program, but you can lead the horse to water, can't make them drink. And so we need for you to tell your people that take advantage of the community college, all the opportunities they have, not just for this opportunity, but for others as well. All right, let's keep going down. Yeah.
Let me add to this. Because they talk about when Sam's Club came, they couldn't find nobody to work. Let me tell you something. I think all that is a hype. I graduated from Southwest Edgecombe High School. I worked at aerospace company. No other companies around here do what we do. I had to go to training for 2 weeks. That's it. But people, I've been there 38 years, still there. But people coming in off the street can do the job. So people can do these jobs. So I think a lot of the education thing is a lot of hype.
To that point, some of you may have attended the announcement for Natron Energy last year. One of the things that at the time they had co-CEOs, that those two gentlemen stood on that stage to say, they talked about all the reasons why they picked Edgecombe County. Of course, a wonderful business park here, the incentives and all of these things, but they also talked about the workforce that they had access to. And to your point, they talked about they felt very confident that they'd be able to fill those jobs. Now, again, these companies don't just look here at the county. We wish they would, but they can't just look here at one county. They look at a catchment area that, depending on the business, the types of jobs that can be from 30 to 60 miles out. Again, people don't mind commuting in this part of the state. But they, I think affirmed what we knew is that, we have people here in the county that are ready to work. Of course, not everybody, but we have people here in the county that are ready to work. Corning, just right up the road here, they seem to be very pleased with the workforce that they were able to attract for their jobs. I think they have around 130 to 150 at full capacity, and they mentioned that they had a relatively easy time getting employees. Now, every employer, including the county, we have to do our work. We can't sit back and say, well, the door is open and the lights are on. Where are all the people? We've got to make ourselves attractive as an employer. We've got to do our work to recruit people, and it's the same for all of these companies as well.
Add to that as well. One of the things that we do is recruit new companies, but also we have established position organizations for existing industry, right? Because we give all this money to these outside people, incentives, all bring them in. What about the existing industries? Noah's Cable, Sarah Lee, Cummings, Jim's Auto Body Shop, whatever. We also can bring incentives, state incentives, and other things. Training. If you don't follow the money. Cummins just put $500 million of expansion over in Rocky Mount. Ellis Cable's not totally been announced yet, but they're looking to do a major expansion. Some of the other facilities and the industries are seeing the value of being here for the workforce that's already in place. They're expanding, so they're putting in monies into existing industries. And for our job, that's as exciting as they try. So I think to answer your question about workforce, they're here, whether they drive here or they're already here. You build it, they will come. And if we're, I used to run 200 people in Nash County producing eggs. It's called soft skills, in which we actually have a program, community colleges, basically teaches young people how to come in the door. Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. Be to work on time. What's expected by employers, how to interview. Those skills, and many times, are better than learning some electrical ohms and DC, AC. Because the company will train you all that. But you gotta have somebody willing to come in the door and kind of keep coming in every day.
Thank you, Bob. Another question we have here is, I think I'm understanding, is this presentation to let the community know that Edgecombe County is opening the door for data centers to start their business in Kingsboro Industrial Park is the first part of the question. Well, I think the point of this presentation tonight is to let you know where we are and what we know so far. But it is no secret. When we started at the very beginning, before this project ever showed up, we've been working for a long time to try to bring new jobs and increase our tax base here. It's something that every county needs, and we really need it here in Edgecombe County. That's why the vision of the board over 20 years ago, and Chairman Wiggins was on the board, and the board has changed. You know, new members come on, folks have left, but they've stayed consistent in believing that this Kingsboro Business Park is good and needed for Edgecombe County. So it's no secret. We're always hoping that somebody's looking to build and create jobs and make investment here. And we were excited to hear that there was an opportunity for that. We had to make sure we did our research, our due diligence, asked tough questions. As we mentioned, there was another data center project that couldn't quite check all the boxes for us, so we had to say, I'm sorry, I don't think Kingsboro is for you. Ultimate decision is the board. We only make a recommendation. We felt like that this particular project helped us to alleviate some of our concerns, not a total 100%, removal of any concerns. I don't think any company can do that because you don't know exactly what it's going to be until it's there. But we try to do our research as best as we can. But we knew that if we're going to even entertain the idea of a data center of any type, we needed to make sure that we tried to steer it to where we felt is most appropriate. And what the recommendation of the staff, with a lot of conversation with folks that we work with, recommendation is we feel like the most appropriate place for it would be in our industrial zone, M2, as you've seen it on the map, that being here, Kingsboro, and just one other parcel north of us that is zone M2. And we also felt like that if we're going to entertain the idea, we needed to make sure that we put some development standards in there that would help, we feel like, to bring it to a place that we would be open to. Now, again, final decision is of the board whether or not they want to adopt these recommended amendments. They may have some discussion on Monday night and make some changes and adopt it, some changes from what it is now. They may not approve it at all. Then there will be some other processes. But to answer your question, we want to let you know that here's an opportunity that's before us. We wanted you to know what we know so far and where we are so far. The second part of the question here on this card is, does this meet the goal for growth and development, or just the county's sale of land and receiving growth in taxes? That's a good question. I mean, primarily the goal of economic development in general, not just this project, is create jobs and grow our tax base. Every county needs it. We really need it here in Edgecombe County. Now, it happens to be that this particular project says you don't have to give us the land. We're interested in buying it from you. So that will enable us, if the sale proceeds, to be able to put those funds back in the general fund and reinvest it or reinvest it in something, or just to eliminate the pressure on our budget. So this is, most economic development projects that we get come to us don't usually offer to buy land.
Can I have one more comment?
Let me get through these quickly if I could.
Hit that get off the list chart.
Get off, that's right. Some of you may have heard that, we've got some challenges here in Edgecombe County. We've got some lists that we're not pleased where we are on those lists. High unemployment is one of those. Those things will not fix themselves. We've got to make a concerted effort to make some improvements in those areas. Economic development helps to address many of those lists, including our high unemployment. Thank you, Bob, for that. This one talks about safe noise level for sleeping is about 40 dBA. A box fan equals a box fan. 50 to 60 is too loud, and it is a constant drone, not a conversation-like noise. I don't think the requirements are adequate, and the noise will harm property values. Will they capture the heat as well as the carbon, or simply exhaust? And then the third part of that, Power Road is only 2 miles, I think that is. Where? I'm not sure if I understand the last part of that. We will take your point about the noise level. We certainly will. Again, part of us having this meeting is to get feedback to help inform us. We certainly will look more closely at that and make the appropriate recommendation to the board. Will they capture the heat as well as the carbon, or simply exhaust it? I really don't know the answer to that question. We certainly will try to find that out. And the third part of that, Power Road is only 2 miles, and where?
Where in those 2 miles would they be able to look for, find a place that they could put a data center?
Oh, well, I know that they're looking at some available parcels now, but that's not been finalized yet. So I hate to point at anything, and it might not be.
But you think there are parcels in that area?
Yes, somewhere along Power Road is what they're looking at. Yes, ma'am. Again, anything in that area is not zone M2. So if they're interested in that, they will have to go through the rezoning process.
Thank you.
Okay. Any others, Mike?
That was it. I mean, I think there might have been one on here somewhere, but I think it's covered.
Well, I think we've covered, and maybe some of you had duplicate, but any other questions? Yes, sir.
I have one follow-up.
Sure.
It goes right along the lines with the sleeping thing. In my research, these data centers have a lot of lighting around them. all night long.
Hmm.
In our ordinance proposal, have we entertained anything related to, lighting during nighttime hours for our business park? This is all entities in that business park, especially for those that are gonna have to live around it. It's not easy to just to pick up and move. And we don't want to do that anyway, because we lose some of our citizens.
Good question. You're the first one who's asked anything about lighting. Durbin, does our ordinance address lighting in any way?
Yes, so there's a section in our UDO that addresses lighting standards for businesses. So there are current lighting standards that we do have in our ordinance that covers any use, and that which purpose is to prevent glare spilling over to neighboring properties.
Does that answer your questions?
Kind of,
I'd like to follow up on his question. QVC, before it was built, the night sky in West Edgecombe was dark and you could see the stars. When they built QVC, there's an orange glow that drowned out the stars. We couldn't see the stars in half the sky. It's because of the orange glow from the parking lot lights. And of course, we don't already see the lights from the Rocky Mountain side because the lights from the city. We need to have some kind of down-directed lighting in the ordinance so that the light goes on the ground where it's needed for people to park and walk and not up in the sky.
Thank you for that. I'm going to make notes of both of your questions and your points to make sure we take a closer look at that.
yeah, so in my research, there's a lot of data centers. People are having to buy certain types of window film or line of some sort to block out the lights.
Just area lighting, perimeter lighting around it. Okay.
It's almost, what I'm understanding, it almost gives you a perpetual daylight outside, daylight outside if you're nearby.
Thank you both for that feedback. We've made note of that to look at that. Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, for my query.
Bless you.
Talk about your economic development process and your communication back and forth with this particular company.
Mm-hmm.
It has just been verbal. You have not gone to a business site. Have you? The question is, have you gone to a data center site?
We have seen a data center, but not one exactly like this. To answer your
I'll
question.
tell you one you can go see on your way to Raleigh. It's Bojangles there in Nightdale. Go in there and get you an iced tea. And on the back side of that is Truist Bank's data center. It doesn't have power generation and all the things else, but
What's the square size of that building?
I estimate it's a half a million square feet, but it's just,
Just in your analysis, how would you rationalize the size of where you're talking to what is the potential here? Would it be a fourth?
I can show
That
that.
Probably
it
a
is
fourth
a
of what
point.
they're projecting?
Probably
or
half.
an eighth of
yeah,
that?
probably about half. But the big thing is Durbin pointed it out as the burns. Hopefully you won't see them, even from 64, the way they've got the setbacks as well as the requirements for vegetation.
Will the power generation produce sound as well as the data center component?
Yes, and so all of it together will have to meet these noise limits. Yes.
And the property line is where
It has that property line.
whatever they have in there.
And I don't know if it was, I think it was mentioned earlier, but just to underscore the point, is that the text amendment as it's proposed, that calculation, and then the annual, I forgot what you call it, the annual attestation for the noise will be done by a third party that the county will select. And so in other words, you don't want the company hiring their bud from college that happens to have the business, right? Not that this company would do that, but we put that additional tweak in there so that we can have a third unrelated party, to give us that, and that's to be done on an annual basis.
Which the company would pay for.
The company has to pay for it, and we hire the person, similar to like with stormwater management. Yes. Durbin did check in our ordinance. There are standards about lighting, such that they are to be pointed downward and not allow lighting bleed over or pollution, lighting pollution as they call it. We believe that probably QVC was built before those standards were in place, likely. But that's still a good point, and we want to go back and double check and make sure that what we have, we feel like will be sufficient. So thank you for that. Any other questions that have not already been addressed, either in the presentations or what we've answered?
I want to make a point there. We know we need jobs, but we need clean jobs. This community, we're here in April, we're on the historical markers. The community got together and stopped a Hog Star House in this community that was environmentally negative.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't want another environmentally negative company coming to this park. You know, we want clean jobs. Corning's a clean job. I think QVC was a clean job. This is what we're concerned about.
Sure.
And we don't want to go back, just because of no need jobs, but we need clean jobs.
You're absolutely right. Absolutely right. And I'm sorry.
I'm not concerned about the noise, about the carbon, all this stuff, the unproven technology. It's serious concerns.
Absolutely. And I will mention Mike, when he talked about the process, and then Bob followed up with it, and we talked about those meetings, other partners that are at the table. Bob mentioned that we have representative from Edgecombe Mart, Dominion Energy, City of Rocky Mount if needed, all those. We also have folks from the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality. They come to the table at some point in the process. Sometimes they literally come from Raleigh and sit at the table in Bob's conference room, or they get on a virtual meeting and they start asking, because they know the better questions to ask than we do on those. And we are very proud, not just for this project. I think you would be proud as to the team effort that comes together to review these projects. Mr. Pike in his office, they have a very long conference table. And if it's just a couple of people that say this table is way too long, but I know why it's long, because sometimes in these projects, we've seen companies bring 12 people. And then between us, Bob's team, Edgecombe Martin, DEQ, Department of Transportation, all of us are sitting on our side of the table answering and asking questions. It's a team effort. I try to bring what I can to the table. Mike does a great job. We all bring something to the table, but collectively we bring a lot to the table. And that's all for the benefit of our citizens, to try to vet these projects as best as we can, make good recommendations to our commissioners so that they can make informed decisions.
Good.
Yes, sir.
I guess I would just ask, anything that citizens have concerns about is making the environment issues. Info is very conscious that what we ask our staff to make the environment issues that would cause no negative impact. The citizens of the north possibility of not having future development for this Kingsboro site. So based on anything that you all might have found that you think that could negatively impact, that we don't do right now. So that we could get answers, so that the board could get answers before we make those decisions. But it appears that based on what planning board has stated, is that based on what they're proposing to use by right, that it would at least answer some of those concerns as it may cause or is, and the other that if they're coming to us to request rezoning in other districts, there's so many other things that can be asked of them as relate to restrict
the rezoning that's restricted to that process, but maintenance purposes, I also speak, we can do certain things with this ordinance that we can't do with the existing ordinance, because there is legislation before the General Assembly, you know, is to restrict what we can do. Is that correct?
That's right. There's a state statute, they call it the down zoning bill, that limits zoning changes that we can make in certain circumstances. Now, in this particular case, we are able to make this type of text amendment because it's not changing the zoning for this, it's just changing what's permitted. It's adding one more thing that's permitted with the development standards. But in some other cases, we're limited in the changes that we can make. Good point, Mr. Chairman. Yes, ma'am.
I appreciate your saying you have development standards,
Mm-hmm.
and I appreciate that you're thinking of having standards that is all sound and right.
Mm-hmm.
My other question is, what are the potential hazards to the employees, the 500 employees? Are there potential hazards working in this type of work environment?
Mm-hmm. No type of industrial facility is without hazards, right? Whether it's, even if you're just putting boxes up on racks like over at Corning, there are hazards. There are standards that they have to follow. OSHA, everybody's familiar with OSHA. They have standards, safety standards. If you're going to be in this room and the noise is above a certain level when you close that door, you got to wear ear protection. That's nothing that we control. Those are federal and state standards that they have to adhere to protect those who work in those types of facilities. So there would be those standards that would apply. I certainly am not an expert to speak to exactly what those are, but there are those types of regulations that are in place that would impact or regulate this project as it would any other type of project. Great question. Good question. Yes, ma'am.
So when you're talking about the noise level, we're talking about pad L,
Mm-hmm.
pad M.
L and M, yes,
L
ma'am.
and M.
Mm-hmm.
So is that together, or are these two separate buildings?
That's a good question. Let's see if I can show you this again. So, and one of that layout over there is a little bit confusing because it shows L and M like they're two squares side by side, but the actual tax parcel is not laid out that. That's just a concept that we can market with. The tax parcel actually is about 21 and a half, almost 22 acres right here. Again, QVC is here. And then this is 100 acres. Now, what we expect will happen is that they will likely have this resurvey to have these two separate parcels combined to one. Okay, but as the standards are proposed, and if they are adopted, then wherever the parcel line is will determine the setbacks. They have to be set back at least 100.
Well, there's one for 50 and one for 100. I guess it depends on what's determined.
Gotcha. Did that answer your question?
Sort of.
Okay.
So, okay. The proximity of these two paths
Mm-hmm.
in regards to Tower Road.
Mm-hmm.
So depending on what that's not that far apart. So that noise level is going to be a concern.
Yes, ma'am. We've heard that where we are now, we feel like the standards that we're proposing would be adequate for that. We're hearing feedback tonight that says we need to go back and take another look at that, but we certainly hear your concern. Yes, ma'am. Any other questions?
Yeah, I got one other thing. And by the way, I got 407 people that watching. I wish back to New Bern. The reason why I'm interested in this, I went to the one in Calvary. It's because, like I said, I've been working in Nash County, Rocky Mountain for 38 years. And I was looking forward to the triangle tire and everything else. Maybe possibly when I retire to go to work here, because I come through here every morning going to work. Come right through here every morning going to work. And where I work at, the rail system, next county right here, Edgecombe County right there, walk out the back door, this is where the rail system is. I can walk to the rail system.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my purpose of being here, trying to find out exactly what's going on. And see if it's somewhere that I want to work at. So that's why I'm here.
Okay, good. And thank you for being here. And thank you for sharing it there so people can see it. Again, as we mentioned, Jason is recording it, and we will post this on the county's YouTube channel. And so it'll be available for people to watch back later. And you certainly can to their Facebook pages as well.
I can be on Facebook, but when I get home, I put it on YouTube.
Good, thank you. And if you didn't know, now, and we've been doing this for a few years, all of our commissioner meetings are shown live on Facebook. We have a more stable Wi-Fi network back at the building, but if you're not able to come to a meeting, we encourage you to watch it live or come back and watch it later. Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Wiggins. We want to let you know about and encourage you to attend. Chairman Wiggins reached out to us, and he wants to have a community meeting in Rocky Mount, not about this project specifically, but we want to give county update about things that are going on, again, to hear from citizens. So we plan to try to do more of these around the county. We're kind of calling it our county in your community. We just want to come out to update people on the things that are going on, challenges we face, and to hear back from you. But this meeting will be, community meeting will be on October 27th. That's at 6 p.m. It will be at the Edgecombe Community College campus in Rocky Mount, in the Barnes Auditorium. Again, the county's community meeting in Rocky Mount, October 27th at 6 p.m. It will be at Edgecombe Community College in Rocky Mount in the Barnes Auditorium. As we plan others moving around the county, we certainly will announce those. Some of you may be on Facebook. I will tell you the quickest way to get updates on things going on in the county is we have a website. Certainly go to that, but we're able to quickly put updates on our Facebook page. So I encourage you to go to that and follow it if you can. We have other ways we post things in our building and things like that. So. Last call. Any other questions? Well, let me say this real quick about Edgecombe County folks. I'm very proud of y'all. You know, sometimes we can face some tough discussions, tough issues, and it's okay that we all don't agree. That is okay. In fact, that's great. That's great. It is wonderful that we can come together and really talk those things out. We've seen it here tonight. We've seen it. Some of y'all have been a part of. Solar farms has been a hot topic over the last couple of years. We've had many people show up to our meetings. Chairman Wiggins said we need to get ahead of this. Let's hear from the people. We created a stakeholder group. Mr. Spell, our planning director, did a wonderful job of organizing, and I don't know, we had 20 or so people from all different opinions and interests in solar farms. We got their feedback, and we're in the process now of planning to make some recommendations to our ordinance as it relates to solar farms because of those concerns. Now, that in particular we are affected by that state law that I mentioned earlier that restricts some of the changes we can make, but we have, as you probably know, we have a moratorium right now on new solar energy projects because we want to make sure we go through this process. But even as a hot button topic as that was, people came together. They were very civil and cordial and gave us some really good feedback, as you all have tonight. We're very proud of the folks here in Edgecombe County, and we are super proud to serve you, and we thank you for coming out tonight. God bless you. I hope y'all have a safe trip home. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Stay here.